Rolling along here, and a pleasure to be joined by this guy. You know him, you love him, from ESPN, SEC Nation. The guy is all over the place. He's got a new book out called Sideline CEO, Leadership Principles from Championship Coaches. He is the great Marty Smith. Marty, a quick thought on, obviously, this book. I know a few years ago, you had Never Settle, which was more about your life and stories. Talk about Sideline CEO. What led you to want to write this book?
The impact of great leaders on my life, first of all, but I have the great blessing with my ESPN life to engage and learn from some of the greatest leaders of all time. And I wanted to be a vehicle to take all that tutelage and offer it to other people for their own daily walk. And I know for a fact that Sideline CEO will do that for you. I've injected so much of that wisdom into my daily walk, not only as a host and reporter, but as a husband and father. And it's Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Mac Brown, Roy Williams, Tom Izzo, Doc Rivers, Urban Meyer, Patty Gasso at the University of Oklahoma just won her 7th national championship. Kim Mulkey at LSU just won her 4th. It's a who's who. And they have shared so much vulnerable storytelling with me that people are going to get a lot out of it. We see them in a certain light, right? We see them yelling on the sideline or in a press conference where it's clinical or vanilla. This is a very vulnerable text, and it's applicable in the boardroom, it's applicable in the locker room, it's applicable in your living room. And I hope you guys go buy it because there's so much in it that is so rich.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because, look, sports fans are going to check this out because they know you, they love hearing perspective from some of these other great coaches. Like Kentucky fans are going to be appealed by hearing from Coach Cal and all this. But it really is for folks who even aren't sports fans that are just looking for recipes for success in life. And so many of these, Marty, I was just reading, some of the bullet points, like communication. That's every field, man. If you're not communicating right, you're not succeeding.
That's right.
And the big one I deal with is delegating, man, because it's not that I don't like bossing people around, but man, I like doing when I need something done, I do it myself. It is so hard to delegate and be successful, but that's what the real leaders got to do.
Well, very well said, brother. And Kirby Smart told me in the pages there, Sideline CEO, he did not become a championship caliber coach and leader until he stopped micromanaging and started delegating. That's when it really started to click, because you're hiring these people to do a job. Let them do the job. And then if they don't, then you maybe step in and say, okay, we got to do a better job. Ultimately, you got to hire and fire. That's part of being a CEO. But I love what Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, I interviewed him in the book as well. And he said to me that there's an inclination among uber-driven, highly successful people that if it's not getting done the way you want it done, I'll just do it myself. But what happens? Here's what happens. That removes the macro view with all the different silos that the CEO has to live within. That suffers because you have to be in the nuance and granular detail of game planning, as it were. And these days, man, if you're a CEO, you have to worry about budgeting and human resources and crisis management and hiring, firing. It's just so much more than game planning. So I just felt like that. I'm glad you said that because that chapter is very interesting.
He is the great Marty Smith. Again, the new book is out now, Sideline CEO. And you and Ryan, it's so funny. Y'all are both great writers. I mean, Ryan's been doing it for so long, but I enjoyed your first book. I'm really getting excited about digging into this one. But, man, you guys work so well together. The Marty and McGee show, are you surprised it's still going this strong after this long?
I'd like to say next question, Chris, because we don't want our bosses to know that we're stealing their money here. We say that all the time, but we just laugh about it because how massive a blessing that a relationship and a friendship between two country boys has kind of become this thing. And it's funny, too, we're pretty particular about mentioning that, yes, we have a lot of fun and Florida Man and hillbilly headlines and nostalgia and talking about all the stuff we love. But we have the latitude to do the funny stuff because we get the serious stuff right. if there is a massive story in sport, one of the two of us or both of us is probably covering it for Sports Center. So we also have that credibility of the reporting that comes with important journalism as well.
I wanted to ask you in that realm too, Marty. You do such a good job in so many of your feature pieces, your sit-down interviews. You guys had Lane Kiffin on the other day. I know you sat down with Jackson Dart last week. How does that? You've been doing this for so long. What's the process after that? Like, are you the one in there editing? Are you sending stuff back to Bristol? What's the process when you're putting a piece together nowadays? Because I'm sure in your early days you were doing it all. What are the resources like now at ESPN in helping you put stuff like that together?
I'm blessed with a great team. So it depends on the feature, but kind of the way it usually works is I do all the preparation with the questions in kind of unison with the producer that's assigned to that specific piece. We do the interview. We go home. The producer will look at all the content. I'll start writing the script. And then I start sort of playing tennis with the script with the producer. We finalize a script. We send it up the line to our bosses. They sign off on it after reading the entire interview. And then ultimately we start putting the edit together, and the producer actually edits and puts it together. So it's a whole team effort.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's always good stuff left on the cutting room floor too. That's always the tough part, and editing stuff down
the worst part. Drives me crazy.
It's like, hey, but we only got 3 minutes, Marty. Like, 3 minutes, good Lord. But that's just part of the process. More importantly, who does your hair, Marty? Because it is always expertly lined up with the poof in the front. Who does your hair?
Yeah, it's the eighth wonder of the world. So going back to McGee a minute, the great misconception is that I spend all this time on my hair and he just shows up and rolls out of bed that way.
Right.
Couldn't be more inaccurate. I just take this stuff called American Crew Forming Cream. I put a little bit in my hand, I swoop, and I leave. McGee is like a hair dryer guy, a hair brush guy.
Wow.
Like, it's a whole thing with that cat. So that's the big misconception about Marty and McGee. Yes, but my hair is the eighth wonder of the world.
What question about the fame too? Because I know you were doing NASCAR years ago. I mean, you've done it all on the way up to where you are now, and obviously you're very recognizable. ESPN provides such a good platform with that, but I got to think it's a blessing and maybe a little bit of a curse, right? Like you can't go anywhere without people recognizing you. I got to think.
Well, it's a blessing is what it is. And if you look at it any other way, then you think a little too highly of yourself. The only time that it's ever an issue is like when you're having dinner with your family.
Yeah.
That's the only time it's ever an issue. But like, I'll tell you a funny story, bro. We were in Starkville, Mississippi a couple weeks ago, and McGee and I were sitting at the end of the bar at the Walk-On's restaurant. So McGee's over here to my right, and he's engaged in some conversation with one of the referees about his book with his dad called Sidelines and Bloodlines. Great book. Go read it.
Good book. Yeah, I got it.
And meanwhile, I'm at the end of the bar. I took pictures with 5 different babies that ain't mine. So, yeah, it's a little different sometimes, but what a blessing. It's the blessing, Chris, is this. People welcome us into their home, man. They feel like they know us.
Yeah.
So we're very approachable, and that's a blessing.
Yeah, and I love that about Ryan too. I've gotten to know him at SEC Media Days over the years and all that. And I mean, he literally walks up and goes, "What's up, dude?" I'm like, "You don't know me, but it feels like I know you. It feels like you know me." So you guys are two of the most relatable guys in all of sports. And I hope everybody goes and checks out this book. Again, Sideline CEO, Leadership Principles from Championship Coaches. And again, I loved Never Settle. So can't wait to dive into this one, Marty. Thanks so much for the time, man. I know you're being pushed through the ringer right now, doing all the car wash stuff and hitting every show in America. So we really appreciate you taking some time, man.
Thank you so much for the platform, brother. I appreciate your spirit, and y'all have an awesome day.
All right, thanks, Marty. That is the great Marty Smith there of course, ESPN, SEC Nation, SEC Network. I mean, the guy's everywhere. He does it all, and we really appreciate Marty Smith for taking some time there. More Locked On SEC coming your way in just a sec.